Did you know that climate change affects your day-to-day life as a woman, as a mother, or as a sister? In the world globally, our population has increased from 2 billion to 8 billion in less than a century, and this has impacted climate and the environment. In regards to water conservation, we see that the aquifers are having, a challenge whereby 21 of the 37 largest aquifers are significantly distressed and 13 are almost depleted. We also get to see that from 1993 to 2010, 2,150 gigatons of water were pumped out of the ground. This is enough to fill Lake Victoria. We also get to see that as we increase encroachment on the environment due to the high growing population, Uganda being the second largest population growth in the world, we get to see that people are encroaching on the forests, people are encroaching on the wetlands, and that is causing climate change in terms of disaster. The disaster risk management in this country is somehow being managed, but we see lack of financing towards that. The Accountant General's Office, towards, as it was answering Parliament, towards contingency funding, said it would like to fund under the law, but also noted that there is less funding because Uganda has to look for this money elsewhere. Today, as women, we gather and understand, diverge and relearn and learn about carbon markets, carbon financing for construction companies, especially in Uganda, and if they can be able to mitigate the climate change impact. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Turyatunga Juna, and this is the Women's Show. Welcome to the show, women.
Thank you.
How is climate change treating you?
Oh, it's treating us the same way it's treating everybody. We're feeling it.
In simple terms, what would you tell a woman out there what climate change is? Belinda.
Climate change is the most, I don't want to say it's most immediate, but I think, I know that it is the difference within the patterns of the climate that we knew then and what's happening right now. It manifests itself through probably the changes in the seasons and very many other ways, but it's not what we knew growing up. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
In your area of work, how do you focus on climate change? Give us just a bit of a background about yourself and the area of your work.
All right, so I'm Belinda Virunji. I'm the communications officer at Treescape Planet, UG. So our area of work is really about to create awareness and empower civic communities for them to be able to take hand and take part in the whole climate change and finding solutions to the effects that have been caused by climate change. How do we work with women? Very many of the women, probably towards half of the farmers, are women, and yet they lack a lot of access to credits. They lack access to things that can make their work a lot more easier and profitable for them. So in our line of work, we empower them. We provide them with trees, and we do our work through probably agroforestry, reforestation, and afforestation itself. So when we work with these women, we provide them with trees to be able to replant them, but we also teach them the importance of taking part and taking charge of the decisions they make to be able to profit through the whole situation.
Okay, thank you so much, Belinda, and I'll come to you, Bonnita. Welcome to the show, and give us a bit of background of kind of the work you do with the women, and also highlight on the role of women towards mitigating climate change effects.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here today. I'm called Tukwatansie Bonnita, the programs coordinator for Treescape Planet organization. Basically, our role that we do, or our work that we do, basically we are looking at how do we empower our rural women, how do we empower our young girls to make sure that they benefit from the effects of climate change. Not benefiting, but make sure they mitigate with the changes of the climate change. Because climate change, you realize it's affecting not only the the women, but also the girls. So we need to make sure that these girls are empowered through education awareness. That is basically what TRISCAP is looking at, education awareness, environmental education, that this should start right from the childhood, right from the child to understand that if I plant a tree, how will it become a life to me? That is why we focus on plant a tree, plant a life. So this girl in school will be able to know that if I plant a tree, in 1 or 2 or 3 years from now, it will be beneficial and it will help to mitigate the effects of climate change. Say things like soil erosion, look at things like providing you with shade, providing with fruits. So basically our role that we are doing, we are making sure as TRISCAP to empower these rural women, to give them the resilience that regardless of the effects of climate change, they can still provide for their families. We are looking at how we can tolerate the zero hunger and realize if there is hunger in the community, then the woman is mostly affected, plus her children. So our role here is to empower the rural women mostly, to give them the resilience to hold on and make sure they understand that the effects of climate change are real and it's time for it to stop, and to make sure we advocate that as a world as a whole, that we make sure that our climate is back to the normal of what it used to be.
Thank you so much, Bonnita. I'll come to you, Phiona Boonabaana. We get to see that there is a lot of activity that we are saying the women should take lead in this, but we get to see that the men are at the forefront of leading the destruction of the environment. How do we work with men to ensure that we mitigate these challenges, but giving us based on your background at your work?
Well, thank you so much. My name is Phiona Boonabaana, and I come from a variety of organizations which are mainly climate-based, and then so I volunteer at Smart Youth Network Initiative as a research and advocacy officer. Smart Youth is a youth-led organization. We deal in youth skilling, empowerment, but we also have the climate action part where I am so much involved in. I also work with Million Trees International Organization. I'm sure some of you have heard about it or have collaborated with us in a way or another. So we are into climate smart agriculture. We are also into waste recycling. So I also recently got an appointment to the Youth Sounding Board.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you so much. So there I basically was appointed or was selected because of my climate-related activities. So I'll be advocating for the youth activities to be funded, youth, of course, youth organizations that are related, that work with environment-related activities, advocating for them to get financing, to get resources, mobilization, capacity building, and all that. So when I come back to the question you asked me, how we can evolve men, or how can we be the stereotype that men are always on the forefront of environmental action, and that was that a question? Yes. So I think it starts with policy. We need to make sure that the policy does not give so much power to the men to be at the forefront. If we have to talk about ownership of resources, can we ensure that women are also given a chance? Because in our communities, in our societies, we have a perception that men are the leaders. The land is owned by a man. As a woman, you don't have access to land. So we have to first beat some of the stereotypes to make sure that women work together or come at the forefront as men have been doing in fighting, especially in fighting climate action. If women are given a chance to maybe own resources, to be the owners of land, property, they are given a chance to ensure that they play a big role in mitigating climate action. I mean, climate change.
Thank you so much, Phiona. One of the things that we need to understand that climate change has an impact on the environment, and most of the times when climate change is happening, it's because of the things we've done due to the population. And currently, we are seeing people encroach on wetlands. We're seeing people encroach on forests. We are seeing people encroach and build towards where the mountains are and the hills are. And this has led to climate-related disasters like floods, riverbanks flooding. We also see that we have constructed and then channeled where the water is supposed to pass. And for me, it goes back to our planning process. It goes back to how do we just, tame our population in terms of, yes, we are many, but how do we ensure that we can live within our little means? The Baganda in Uganda Kingdom here in Kampala, you find that they had a god for the water, the god for the trees. Why? Because that was their way of ensuring that climate change mitigation strategies are there, that you do not encroach on a certain tree or something will happen.
Yeah.
What can we do, and to you, Bonnita, as Ugandans, copying from the Uganda culture in regards to mitigation, prevention of, overpopulation, invading onto the forest cover, onto, the swamps. People are building in swamps.
Thank you very much for that question. Just like you've said, most of the effects of climate change have been due to the increased pressure on our land for settlement, land for agriculture, land for industrialization. So now is our time. I think it's time for us to wake up as Ugandans or the world at large. It's time for us to wake up, and this basically, back to your question, what can we do now? It goes back to, like Boonabaana had mentioned, policy restructuring. It's now our housing sector. You can do better than this. Or because you realize all the drainage have been blocked because someone wants to put up a house. So now is the time, housing structure and the infrastructure, to wake up and make sure to approve the policies that are right, to approve these housing plans that are right. And then also it goes back to the part of advocacy. What have we done as a community? What have we done as a nation? I think you realize on Thursday, 6th June, there was the Women in Climate Change Conference, and Honorable Christine emphasized more on what can women do to make sure we are looking at the equality and making sure we deliver these messages better to our counterparts, be the men, be the young girls, be women, everyone to be involved in this. And now is the time. Actually, she emphasized that how about because everyone is now just planting trees anyhowly. So now how about we emphasize more on planting of the pines? How about we plant more of the fruit trees rather than the pines and the eucalyptus, to make sure we tap, because realize when you plant those types of trees, they have the long tap roots. And these tap roots help in the soil erosion prevention. So it is our goal to also plant trees that are right for a certain area, to be sure we tap on some of the effects like soil erosion. And then also getting back to the community. I think realize years back, like you've mentioned, in our communities years back, we used to have Burundi. I think now we've skipped that part. I think now it's time to go back to the grassroots. Where have you left Burundi? When do people do the cleanups of their communities? Boonabaana mentioned that you do waste management. When have people been learned or taught how to do waste management, to make sure that whatever you have, actually it can be recycled to be reused for something else? So these are conversations I think we need to have more in our communities. We need to host more of the Bulungi. We need to encourage more people that actually your environment can be better, and it all begins with you.
Thank you so much, Bonnita, and I'll come back to you, Belinda. We get to see that there is a lot of plastic out there. It affects soil, quality of the soil, therefore in the long run affecting the quality of the of food produce that we do have. But we also see that it gets into water, because if we are going to have clean, reusable, good water for women to use, and we are having plastic, caveras dumped in drainage systems, we get to see that women don't get to access clean water. What would your recommendation be to government as a woman in regards to mitigating that?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. My recommendation towards government is, first of all, I think we need to have the discussion with the women, and not just women in Kampala or like women downstairs or women like in the villages, because first of all, they most of them have no idea about what exactly is happening, and some of them don't even know the long-term effects of the decisions they take, and yet they make very important decisions in their homes because they buy the cavera, they dispose it off while their husbands are sort of like somewhere else. So because they're important decision makers, it's important that we have the discussion with them and tell them what's at stake and how it affects them. Because because also I feel like very many people out there feel like climate change is like a far off thing, it will not reach us, and those guys will be fine. So the government needs to engage, as in rigorously engage them and tell them, hey, this is what's happening, and it's time that we acted and take charge and not dispose. And if you must dispose, please do it safely, not even just the cavera, the bottles, the sanitaries that we use, because all that line of plastics eventually ends up in the lakes, which doesn't do well with the climate change. So yes, I think we should discuss it rigorously.
Okay, so I'm back to you, Phiona. We get to see, and I want us to focus around climate change related disasters and their financing to mitigate some of these things. The government of Uganda, through the budgeting process, allocates different funds to different sectors. But we know that the disaster risk management plan is rarely fully funded under the contingency fund. The contingency fund does not have a lot of money allocated to it. How then do we convince government that this is an important thing to prevent? Because it leads, climate change disasters lead to an increase in migration, they lead to an increase in refugee influx. But also we have seen that 200,000 people in Uganda get affected because of climate change disasters, related disasters. How then do we convince government as women, and with the current position you've taken at the sounding board, that it is very important to allocate these funds for this particular cause of prevention?
Well, thank you so much for that question. And it is sad to note that in the recent budget that was read, I think last month, the risk-related disasters budget was cut down by 40%. So, but the risks or the disasters are continuing to happen. So I don't know how the government thought about it, but to work upon that, we have to involve stakeholders. We have to advocate for an increase in the budget, because I mean, after this dry season, because July is always hot, around November we always have landslides in Bududa, we have floods in Kasese. If we do not advocate for a budget increment, I think it is going to be a big problem. And me, as a youth, as a woman, my role is to always, because I'm a stakeholder in this thing in the first place, so you cannot just keep quiet. If you keep quiet, your mother, your relative because these people that are affected by climate change related disasters are the vulnerable people, the elderly, the women that are in poor communities. So I find it very urgent that I have to advocate for women, not only women, for societies that are prone to these disasters at the end of the day. And it is through our advocacy, a collective voice of women, of young people, of youth, that we shall, maybe one day government is going to revise its budget and cater for the disasters that are happening, finding ways of mitigation, adaptation, and all that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll come back just straight to you, Belinda. we get to see that the Accountant General's office, in regards to, in response to the funding of the contingency funding under disaster risk management, is that they need to fund under the law. You get it? They need to release and disperse of this money under the law. But what would you now, and that is the role of Parliament, to put up laws and bills. What would you tell members of Parliament? Because they say they appropriate funds towards this, but the Accountant General says, because they are a technocrat, that you need to do it under the law. What laws should they put in place around climate change, mitigation, and disaster risk management, so that it gives room for the Accountant General to appropriate to dispatch of under the law? And also Parliament, putting in mind that Parliament says it appropriates, but it's overruled by Ministry of Finance in regards to, you know, releasing funds. It can appropriate a certain amount and Ministry of Finance cuts it. And that will go to you, Bonnita. What would be your message to the Ministry of Finance? Start with you, Belinda.
All right, thank you very much. So my message, first of all, to the members of Parliament, because they're the legislators, so they make the laws. I feel like what they do, especially about the fund situation, we know that right now government is saying this whole thing of we don't have money. So, well, there's no money. The government needs to put, the Parliament, members of Parliament need to put in place laws that, first of all, I feel like they should be restrictive. At the beginning, restrictive of people constructing in swamps and all these things. I know they're already there, but there should be a more rigorous law, which is actually implemented, such that we see this. But also the law that says up to a certain point, we have to invest this much money in this. Because if we keep thinking we shall do it like off head, like, oh, maybe the climate change is getting worse, let's wake up and do it, it may not happen. Or it may happen, but like not right now. So maybe I think we should divert to the restrictive laws, and then we should ensure that these laws are implemented. Because implementation, I'm not even sure if we really need any new laws, because the laws are there. What really is lacking is the implementation. And we've probably sang this over and over again, but if things are not implemented, the laws are there. If they're not implemented, so maybe the members of Parliament should look more into accountability to see that the people that are supposed to overlook these laws and see that they're being implemented, that they're actually implementing them, that even people who are breaking the laws are brought to book. Otherwise, short of that, we can do all the laws we want, but it may never really yield the intended results.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll go to you, Bonnita. If Parliament is appropriating a certain fund towards contingency funding for prevention and mitigating climate-related disasters, and we are having the Ministry of Finance slash that budget and say there is a working budget, what would you, as a woman that is getting affected by climate change impacts or working around climate change, say to the Ministry of Finance in regards to funds allocation? Because whereas we are saying we increase awareness, we do this, it has to have a working budget. You cannot just wake up and do certain things. And there are things that government can do, and there are things that we as human beings can do, or as citizens can do under citizens' action. What would be your message to the Ministry of Finance in regards to budget allocation, funds dispatch of to particularly disaster risk management?
Thank you very much. For starters, I would like to applaud our Prime Minister, that she's really pushing for environment conservation. And this comes hand in hand with, she has told us that actually our president that signed a document that allows for some of the ways how we can tackle this. So with such progress with our government and the leaders, we believe it's a step, one step at a time. We believe it's a step, and going forward, we believe our budget is going to be allocated to this climate change. If our Prime Minister, our President is aware that actually more trees are being cut for charcoal, and then they've restricted that there is no longer charcoal production. So this is really a step we are seeing. So it's a plus. So, but going forward, we are calling upon all leaders, all the parliamentarians, be it starting from the top to the grassroots. And also we are glad, even if we just get, because this a budget allocation, it starts with the ministers or the parliamentarians themselves. Even if we just get 1 or 2 ministers who are really interested in taking upon this, it would really be our pleasure to see such things coming to light. Because for starters, we just have a few ministers or a few parliamentarians who are interested in these topics. For example, like Honorable Beatrice, I think she's one lady, Mama Mabila, who has really stood her ground from the word go, and she has really mentioned it, that our environment deserves better, that climate change has to be, that climate change effects are real, and this should be worked upon. So it's our call to more parliamentarians to come and join us and join our call, because climate change effects, they're affecting each and everyone. Everyone is involved. So it's our call and prayer to come and join the call, to raise more awareness that actually this is real. My hope is that when more people are on board, especially the parliamentarians, and because these things are happening in their different societies and communities, so but when they come on board, that means they'll be able to ably raise their voices in the parliament when they're looking out which fund can be slashed here and there. They have the reasons why our continuous fund for climate change is left at par the way it's supposed to be, and it is utilized the way it's supposed to be.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll push the question to you. What would be your call to Ministry of Finance? Because yes, Parliament appropriates funds, but there is a slash of budgets. What would be your call to Ministry of Finance in regards to this? Because let's look at the drought in Karamoja. Let's look at Ududa. Right now, the riverbank burst in Kasese.
Yeah.
But the budget is not speaking to the needs of such things. And even when the parliament has said, okay, go ahead and we have put this money and approved this budget, there is a working budget. What would be your call to Ministry of Finance as a woman working in climate change related activities towards, the budget of climate change disaster risk management?
Thank you so much. My call to Ministry of Finance would be to prioritize their financing. Let's not. We should give a priority to effects to impacts that affect society at the first place. If you're financing, don't give security a high budget, then you come to environment because this is a periodic thing. This is maybe when it happens, we shall find a supplementary budget. No, that will not work. I think the Ministry of Finance should put in place a sufficient budget for financing these disasters, because at the end of the day, they affect citizens, they affect especially women, young children that are so much vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you, Phiona. I'll come back to you, Belinda. We as a country do not have a water governance system. And we get to see that globally, agriculture takes 70% of water withdrawals, both for irrigation, even for home use, I think. But in the long run, we are not having a proper governance for water by this country in terms of rainwater harvesting, underground, pumping of water. Then we look at Lake Victoria at the moment. During COVID, Lake Victoria rose because most of the times we were not having a water governance structure that we would, not encroach and overtake a lot of water from it. But you saw it went back to its greatness. I think it healed from us and our disturbing it.
Yeah.
But also now we get to see that the underground aquifers are also getting affected. So we are having the water that is in freshwater lake being affected. We are seeing the swamps being affected. How best can the government of Uganda have water governance structures? Because guess what? Without water, there is no rain.
Yeah.
There is no forest.
Yeah.
There is no agriculture.
Right.
So how best can government of Uganda ensure, as a woman, you make your call to government of Uganda that we as women, these are our thoughts for you to be able to govern water in such and such a way?
All right, thank you very much. So first of all, I think the government needs to put priority in the urgency that I think it needs to be treated with the urgency that it deserves, because this climate change is affecting us. I do not know, I struggle to find out if they have an idea of how much this affects us, because every time this climate change is happening, people are being, like, it exposes us to the gender-based violence a lot further. People are getting married a lot earlier than they should be. People are getting sexual harassed, and all these things are happening. So I don't know if they have an idea of how bad the situation is, but hoping that they do, the water governance needs to be given priority. Why? Because when this priority is given it to this, all these climate problems that are happening, probably the food security and all these things, do not affect the women as much. So the priority should be given in terms of budget, in terms of the discussions, in terms of the policy. While there could be a discussion, oh, maybe we don't have money, but there's like money to do other things. I'm not saying the other things should be neglected, but I think this should be squeezed in somewhere because it's urgent and it's affecting people's lives and livelihoods. And if people's lives and livelihoods are not saved, then maybe the education and security doesn't serve its purpose so much if we're not alive. Yes. So I think the priority should be the key thing in all its different facets, financially, policy-wise, discussion-wise, and going forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Belinda. I'll come to you, Bonnita. Bonnita, we get to see that most of the times when people talk about climate change, people think it's trees, planting of trees, deforestation. But we have a lot of ecosystem destruction. We have soil, we have air, all these things. Basically, those people that studied geography,
Natural resources.
It's much bigger than that. You can get a revision of your class of what you would study with. That will give you the great impact of climate change on geographical sites and features. How best can we tell women that it's not just about trees? Yes, trees have a very important role in terms of forest cover, but it's not just about trees, because you're going to tell a woman that there is soil pollution and she doesn't know what soil pollution is. So I want you to break for us down the different things that women need to focus on that affect them when they are dealing with pollution, when they're dealing with climate change. So that a woman out there can know that if I'm doing ABCD, it's going to result into a climate change impact.
Thank you very much. For starters, Treescape Planet Organization, one of our objectives, we are looking at building resilience of our communities. And our communities, especially, we are focusing more on these women, the women and girls, because we believe if they're consciously, environmentally built, then they can be able to mitigate all these climate change effects. So going back to your question, I believe for any woman out there, now is your time. Especially, remember, women make up 60–70% of the population-wise, and also the agriculture sector. So to all the women out there, this is my call to you, that climate change effects don't just stop at you, but they affect the entire society. So my prayer and hope is that you get to know that the effects of climate change cannot just be tackled by planting the trees, say the fruit trees, whereby you expect to get a fruit at the end of the day. No, there is something to do. There is also pollution, and pollution, I think, has greatly hit our society, which should be tackled. And this pollution is not just water, but there is also air pollution. Realize the women, especially the women who do the cooking, now is our call to you that if you could, or if you can, please, you can look into other sources of fuel rather than just the wood, because you're releasing more bad airs. I can call them bad airs to our emissions. You're releasing more emissions that are really affecting our society. So my prayer is to you, if you could use other means, other sources of fuel, say of recent, yeah, there is gas. It's a bit expensive, but it's something to venture into. Then we are looking at basically other sources. Solar is also there. So it is our hope to change the turns now. If you've been using the wood fuel, now it's time to turn to something else. Then also we are looking at the women all out there, the plastics you've been throwing all over the place, because most women do the grocery shopping. My prayer is that if you could at least get a reusable bag, which you're not going to throw away like the polythenes we are seeing every now and then. You go into the market and you have your well-crafted, reusable bag, that when I buy my groceries, I'm able to put them into that bag. That would be a step. That maybe every now and then, and most of this reusable bag, actually you can use it as many times as possible rather than the polythene. So also to my women out there, it's a call to you, because for some of the women, we call them the urban town women, yeah, who do the jogging, who like sipping on their water, on their juice. My call is to you, why use the plastic bottle of water, which you're going to throw away after? My call is, if you can get your own bottle that you can carry and even use as many times as possible. So a way of making sure that we recycle some of these materials that we are using. So my prayer is that more women, also my women out there, this is a call that, women, most of the times women are termed as they're wasteful. Yeah, let's not waste a lot of food. Yes, it's very important. This food can be used or turned into something else. Say for example, if you're going to waste this food, use it for something else. Here we are using more of the 3 R's of sustainability. We're looking at reuse, reduce. Maybe Boonabaana will even give more insights on that, because she's really very good at that. But this is my call to my women out there, that it's now our turn, because whatever we are doing, it's affecting us, and not just us, even our future generation.
Okay, thank you so much, Bonnita. I'll come to you, Phiona, of the Youth Sounding Board, and I like the fact that a woman is part of that board. We get to see that despite the different things we are talking about of mitigating climate change, it has an impact on food security in terms of what people now can produce. The president last time in his State of the Nation address said we will produce, vastly across the spectrum. We no longer have to produce for Chida Choka. But in reality is that, how do you tell a woman in Bududa that has just left her farm and had put her maize or her sweet potatoes or her Irish for a large scale, and is going to get these slides that they do get, that they can produce and store for themselves and also sell off? You get that? It's impacting climate change. Effects are impacting also on food security. Sure. And the president is saying, okay, let's produce very well and let's expand our production.
Yeah.
What would your call be to the president of Uganda, first and foremost, in regards to understanding some of these challenges and how they can be mitigated? Secondly, to the woman that is facing these challenges each and every yearly, because this is something that has been happening every time, so that we don't look like we are very insensitive to what is on ground. Yes.
Well, thank you. Just to let you know is that we have a number of women on that board, which we are grateful for. But to ensure that the woman in Bududa is actually benefiting from her output is by providing a technology that even some of these women are not even able to get the yield from the farm. The first month they have grown their crops, they have planted, it's hot. What I know about the East, I've studied from the East, from Bositema University all my time. So I know how much the sun hits that place. Bududa is part of the East, and most of them, that's why they venture into maybe short-term short-term crops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for them to be able to benefit from the output or to have output in the first place is providing them with maybe efficient, smart agriculture practices.
Yeah.
If the president is talking about a woman benefiting from her farm, let the smart agriculture be there in the first place. How will she get the water to maintain her farm and all that? And then the other thing is, those people are poor. If you've been to Burundi, the government needs to set aside money to provide maybe capital to those people in those poor communities. They lack capital to maybe venture into agriculture. They are poor, so as they should set aside money to give them, maybe to support their activities in farming, in other ways that they could promote their communities. And maybe what a call to a woman out there is that they should come out to advocate for their rights. Yeah, climate change is affecting us all. It's not only in Sudan. It's a global thing. It has no boundaries. It knows no limit. So I think it's our turn as women, as youths, now that we are both youth and women. So we have to come out and speak for our young ones, for the generation that is about to come, the fact that it is affecting us mostly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'll come back to you, Belinda. The government of Uganda, under the office of the Prime Minister, has the Green Growth Development Strategy. And we get to see that despite that, we are seeing what happened on Masaka Road. Yes, how, yeah. But we also still see that the same government, our friends and brothers in government, are the ones that overutilizing the sand, for their own production and industrialization anyway. How do we then have strategies that are saying we want to build climate change and ensure that we want to mitigate climate change, but then we are also doing what is opposite? Same government doing two opposite things, and which is impacting on the roads that we are having. So that's the budget increment for those people in Ministry of Works and UNRWA. They've constructed their road. You've come and put your things, and you, because of not putting into consideration the impact of climate change, you've come and withdrawn your sand, and the next thing, the road is out.
Yeah.
I even fear to use that road because I'm like, what if now during that time the road again goes
Strips away.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do we tell the government of Uganda? Those are ministries that are all in one place in regards to adherence to the Green Growth Development Strategy, climate change, Choto protocol that we signed to. How do we remind government? Because it looks like government is sleeping.
Wow, thank you for that question. And you raise a very hard question. Well, how do we remind them? Because first of all, I feel like we're all, and I'll go back to what you said, the lake was healing. I feel like that speaks to our toxicity in general as the human beings and the government. So I don't know, we remind them in what capacity, as in, because all of us are like in this together. But I know that if we took it up, especially as the normal people, and like put up resistance and said, hey, look here, this is not going to happen. Also, I don't know up to what extent, because ultimately they wield the power.
Yeah.
So maybe we talk to them, but I don't know to what lengths, because there's only so much that we can do. There's only so much we can do. And I think all we can do is like keep sounding the drum. Be like, hey, look here, this is not working and it's affecting all of us. And so the least you can do for us and yourselves and the future generations is to cut it down. Because also sometimes I feel like they do it maybe to get money and all those things, because, our economic situations are not very looking nice. But I know that all we can do, especially us and all people, is keep sounding the drum, like hit it and hit it and hit it until someone maybe just gets fed up and be like, hey, okay, well, I'm done. That's
That
a
will
much.
always get done, because we get to see that the land that was a wetland, now there is rice being planted in that area. A wetland, and there is rice being planted in that area, because guess what? The population has grown, and the opportunities for making money also have grown. But people need jobs, and there is also this swamp that is lying there. But when they touch the swamp also gets angry. Nature does get really angry.
Yes.
Nature does get really angry. So how do we remind government that whereas we know that you're overwhelmed, and let's go to Bonnita, maybe she can give us an answer, that we know that you're overwhelmed in terms of population growth and the need to provide jobs and also increased standards of living for persons. By encroaching on the environment, nature does get angry, and it also affects other sectors.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just like my colleague, all I can say, we just have to keep sounding the bell. Because we've really, or like I had mentioned, like on addition, we need more people, we need more stakeholders in this, because we are not doing this alone. I'm not doing this as me, Bonnita, I'm not doing it as Belinda or as Boonabaana or as Immaculate. This is our call to each and everyone that is concerned. It's upon you. Because remember, by the time you're encroaching on this swamp, you as a person or as an entity, yeah, you're looking out for something at the end of the day, which is okay. You want to get some food for your family. But remember the effects. Actually, your parliamentarian whom you're even worried about, he's not even worried about your constituency. So it's upon you, because at the end of the day, the effects are affecting you as a person. So at the end of the day, we are calling here the government and every person involved, but then it goes back to Tukwatansie, the person who is more endangered, the most person who is in most need. It is my call to you that this is your time to wake up. If you see a friend or a colleague of yours and wants to utilize this swamp to maybe plant his or her crops, it's time to give one a reminder that, hey, actually I think it's not necessary to get into the swamp, because later on it's going to bring for us effects. You know, maybe let's utilize other options possible. Then also we are looking at our leaders from the Ministry of Water and Environment, our leaders from the National Water Corporation. Maybe now this is your call to raise more of your advocacy, to make more of your budgets, to get more involved with the communities. Because personally, I believe when you're more involved with your communities and you're making them aware of this every now and then, it sticks with them and it grows with them and they get to know. And it doesn't just stop at reminding them, but also giving them options. Say you're taking people from the swamp who have just planted in the swamp, because we always have vast land that is available that is not in the swamps, but there is vast land and which can be settled on, which, because we've seen these things happening, they always pay out people to get into other areas. So my call to the stakeholders who are into that capacity, that please, the more as you advocate for making our environment better, it's my call to you that as you also move this people away from the encroachment areas, it's also my call that please at least dare to plan for the part of rehabilitation, the part of resettlement, getting them more land where they can plant so that they can also maintain their standards of living.
Thank you so much, Phiona.
Yeah.
I'll come to you and ask you this question. Is NEMA working? Is NEMA working? Because that's the mandate of NEMA. Is it working?
I cannot speak for NEMA.
As a woman, seeing what they are doing, is it really working?
Yeah, because that would be a direct question. But to me, NEMA is not doing enough. Yes, we know it's a body, it's existing, but it's not doing enough. Why? When you talk about Rela wetland, I think it's what we are referring to. It's been, actually, those people who have grown rice there have permits. That's why it has become hard for the parliamentary committee, I think, on environment. One day visited that place and then they said, but we have permits. If you have to vacate us, refund our money. And then they cannot, I mean, those people cannot have money to refund them. So they have continued with their activities. Recently, there is a wetland that Luigi wetland,
Yeah.
if you know it, along the bypass.
Yeah.
So I think 2 years back, there was a place called Durufula. They established it recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was totally a wetland. They filled it up with soil. I raised a call to Wakiso district because that place is in Wakiso, to the environment department, and then they said, we can't do anything. You see, that wetland was backfilled in the night. We tried to talk to NEMA people. So what the feedback they gave me is that they talked to NEMA, and they say, we do not know these people. We don't know where to start from. If anything has to happen, then security has to come in because this is happening in the night. And these are civil servants. They claim they close at 5. I mean, NEMA has to wake up if the environment has to be protected. It is, I may say, their activities are controversial. They'll go to a place, find it destroyed, a wetland, then they'll blame the local authorities. But when you go back to authorities, you inquire what happened. They'll be like, we raised a call to NEMA, and then the investors, they call themselves investors. They claim they have permits to operate in this area. So it becomes a bit tricky. So this is a call to NEMA, please. If we have to conserve our environment, if we have to ensure that, yes, we need development, because these people that are investors, they call themselves, they need to maybe operate in those places, but can we promote sustainability? You cannot come and clear the whole place because at the end of the day, this is for your own benefit. It is not even benefiting the society you're planning to carry out that activity. So NEMA is not doing its role.
Thank you so much. I'll come back to you, Belinda. What are some of the ways that through your organization you are mitigating climate change impacts with the women that the audience out there can borrow?
We're doing a number of things. First of all, we're creating awareness, because awareness is the first step towards very many things. What you don't know, you can't fight. What you don't know, you can't get head on. So when we create this awareness and we're telling them this is happening, this is how we can do it. And then also we're looking out for the knowledge transmission, like the community-based transmission, because us, when we sit here and we go and tell them, they may feel like, are you guys not interested in this? Are you sure about this? But when we tell one person and ensure that they are passing on the knowledge to one another, it becomes more trustable. So through our organization, we're taking on the mantle to teach the young girls in the schools and everything. So when we teach them, then they can go home and tell their parents, the other members of the community, that this is happening and this is how we can mitigate it. So also we go to the farmers and we're offering solutions and all these things. And we're ensuring to remind them that you have to tell other people, because us, we can only do so much. When we sit here and say, hey, this is happening, we can only do so much. We're limited. But the one person, each one is more effective. So when we teach, we tell them to teach. But also when we provide the solutions, probably we're giving them these trees. And we're particularly focusing so much on the tree planting and everything, because it's just the first aid that us we can work on. Other people can work on other things. So when we provide the trees and they do it, they learn, but also they benefit. And so it also enables them to get involved further, because, okay, maybe if I plant the tree, I'll get the fruits and everything. So maybe there's something in it for me. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bonnita, do you believe that briquettes and biogas is the new way to go to replace charcoal usage? And how do you convince a woman that wants to go as a hatoke that briquettes are less less expensive, but in reality they're very expensive compared to charcoal? How do you convince that woman? Because we now get to see climate change and poverty.
Thank you very much. Personally, how can I convince that woman out there that actually briquettes are affordable and actually you can create them yourself?
That's biogas.
Yes, briquettes are possible. Even biogas are possible. You can actually do this yourself from your own home. Actually, because briquettes, realize they're from the decomposed, the rubbish that we usually throw away. get your rubbish, mix up a few things here and there, and then you have your briquette here with you. So that means if you can do something for yourself, that means it's achievable. And it's even reducing on the risks that at hand. All this garbage that is thrown away in the trash can every other day in the dustbins that are piled up each and everywhere. It's now your time to utilize it, actually create your own briquettes. So that is why we are calling upon more women and convincing them through our awareness that you see these briquettes, they look to be expensive in the sense, but in the long run, actually, it's possible. Because if you get 3 or 5 briquettes, they can actually cook for you for an entire month, which is different with charcoal. Because charcoal, you will cook now and then, you need to buy even tomorrow, even the other day. But you're looking at cutting costs. Briquettes and biogas, you have cut costs. Because also say biogas can also be created from your own home. It's a bit expensive, okay, to get the materials and the tools to create your own biogas. But if you come and be a collective, because usually if you realize most of the communities, what they have done of recent from the grassroots, they've created groups. It's a collective of 5 to 10 individuals, say women, and these are women groups, and I applaud them for them. They're doing quite amazing works. So for example, if you visit Bwayise, from the grassroots, we are seeing these women groups that have created these groups, and these groups that are teaching people how to make your own briquettes, how to create your own biogas. So through this collective, actually these women create these briquettes and then they can sell them at cheaper prices. So if you're worried that the costs, that means you can get these briquettes at a less cost. Then also the biogas, they have been provided with the tools so that they can be able to get this biogas. So you find that each and every home, they have also picked a leaf. So my call is for more women, because women were into the sector, we are the ones who are into the cooking, more into the housework. So my call is to join more of these campaigns, or these communities that, even if you hear, because most of the women, it's claimed they're laid back, they want to be spoon-fed. So my call is, even if you hear one or two of your women in the community, your leaders, they are calling upon for this awareness campaign to come and learn how are briquettes created, how is this biogas created, and how is it beneficial to me. It's my call to you, when that awareness campaign comes in your region, kindly come onto and pick a leaf and learn, because in the long run, it's the way to go. Because charcoal is no more, and it has become more expensive. That is the reality. For the urban sectors, you all know, charcoal is now more expensive. And yet for a briquette, you can utilize it as many times as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come to you, Phiona, and I would like you to share about how best we as women can be at the forefront of climate change mitigation.
Wow, thank you. How women can be at the forefront of climate action. First of all, we have to stand out. We cannot be at the forefront when we are in our kitchen, when you're not doing productive things. To be heard is to stand out.
Yes.
Yeah. If you have to be heard, then you have to speak. First of all, you have to speak.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling women have to wake up, work together, because when we work collectively, it's when the voice becomes more amplified. For maybe the actors to come out of their comfort zones and then understand that these women are facing a challenge. They cannot find affordable, like Bonnita was saying, they cannot find charcoal affordable, and then we have to transition from charcoal to maybe efficient ways, briquettes and all that. That also calls for government action to maybe subsidize, because if a woman cannot afford that, that means they will run back to their traditional ways. So I think the government also has to come up, subsidize some of these efficient or modern ways, because those are smart climate related ways that we can mitigate some of the emissions. When you use a biogas, it's not like it's purely efficient, yeah?
Yeah.
Rather than using maybe your charcoal, which is going to cause you red eyes and breathing problems and all that. So I find it very urgent for government to come up with a subsidization fund, maybe to help these women afford that service. Then also women have to get themselves to work, to action, yeah? If we are talking about climate action, we have to stand out, come out, and if it is a group of 10, then teach other fellow women how to do this thing. Don't just be an awareness raiser, yeah? We have to also be actors in the first place. If you're talking about ways of coming up, ways of recycling waste. As a community, there should be groups of women that are doing this thing, and then maybe the other community can copy from us. For example, at Million Trees, yeah, we have a waste recycling plant, yeah. So we go into communities, empower women, yeah. We give women a small money, they collect plastics from their communities, from their homes, plastic bottles of soda, water. Then they collect them at one place. Then we give them a small pay depending on how much or how many tons you have and all that. So we are able to bring it back maybe to recycling plants, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all that. So that empowers communities as well. Women are empowered in their communities. If they can earn from the small plastics they collect, if they're able to earn a small money to sustain their households and all that, I think that's a good move towards climate action.
Okay, thank you so much, Phiona.
Yeah.
We come to the end of the show, and we are so grateful for you having joined us today. And one of the key takeaways that we would want to remind government is one, ensure that each district has a weather forecast station to have monitoring tools to monitor the weather, to monitor the climate change, so that there is reporting given onto the meteorology group. We also believe that government should speak one voice in terms of projects, because we cannot have NEMA speak something differently and then we are seeing also OPM speak something differently. It should have one voice in terms of climate change, so that these climate change strategies or mitigation strategies are adopted in the work plans, and to ensure that if people are constructing a road, there is a climate change mitigation strategy. We look at Ministry of Works and UNRWA and road construction companies that are, digging the roads, and reminding them that when you dig for stones that you're going to use in road construction, please ensure you plant the trees where you've dug, or else put something that is a climate change mitigation strategy. Also remind the president that women face climate change impact differently, and therefore it increases their levels of poverty and also leaves them in the economic injustice bracket. And therefore, the mitigation should target women, and women should be at the forefront. For places that have drought, we advocate for having cloud sourcing, so that we can be able to have rain come in that area. And that means that we need to invest in science and technology to ensure that we have cloud sourcing, but also carbon financing markets, because we see that most of our markets, most of our construction companies and road construction companies are not getting to get carbon credits. Most of these loans that are given to construct roads in Uganda, they are given to the contractors that are coming from abroad. So that leaves out our construction, our companies to be able to even learn new strategies and also compete in the carbon markets. And to the citizens out there, it's my call to you to be able to take citizen action, to understand that the disasters that are there, and know that if you're supposed to get out of a place as early as possible, do not wait for government to do that for you. We also remind the Accountant General, the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Parliament to harmonize themselves and ensure that funding to disaster-related climate change disasters is crucial, because we can not only just fund for the disaster, we also have to fund for the health. For example, if there is floods, cholera is going to come out, malaria is going to come out. So we ask you that you take charge and fund and appropriate funds rightly, but also increase the budget for that. Until next time, I'm Turyatunga Rebecca Juna. Have a good evening.